Hello, everyone. We're nearly at the end of the story about Budi. I'd love to know what you all think of it and what you think of Budi and his situation. I probably never get to meet any of you, so that's rather sad, really. But I'm sure your teacher, Julie, would pass on any information. I'd love to know what you think of Jakarta and Indonesia and what it must be like to live in such poverty-stricken conditions and make the most out of it. We're very lucky, a lot of us, I think. Anyway, here we are with chapter 20, which is the second to last chapter. And chapter 20 is called There Goes My Everything. I have to tell your father, Mum says. My eyes start to refocus. Mum's hand rests on my shoulder. She looks at me as though I've just woken up. Then I'm going to the hospital to say goodbye. Do you want to come with me? No, I mumble. I'll stay here. It's almost as though if I don't say goodbye, Grandma can't leave. If I don't see her, no one can prove anything, and it'll never become real. Are you sure? Mum asks. I don't like the thought of you being here on your own like this. I'm okay, I say. I'm sure. She squeezes my shoulder and wipes a tear from her cheek. Okay, she says, straightening up. I'll be back as soon as I can. She closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. Then she steps out into the night. I sit on the bald rug, picking at the tassels. There is still the smell of cigarette smoke in the air, the shape of Grandma in the cushions. Sitting in the gloom, I trick my ears into hearing her voice, my eyes into seeing the glowing tip of a cigarette. But it doesn't last. A movement by the door makes me look up, and against the darkness of the street is an even darker silhouette. Little Lazaro, the voice says. It's time to settle a debt. The dragon steps through the doorway and leans against the wall. His wet skin glistens and his Siri-stained teeth look black when he smiles. Nobody saw this earthquake coming, he says, running a stubby finger along a crack in the wall. Do you think I can still get the homeless to pay rent? Ha! It's just as well I've moved into another line of business. My hands clench into fists. I don't want to help you anymore. He frowns. What was that? You want your father to rot in a cell for the rest of his life? You want your mother to live in the slums? Is that what you really want, little Lazaro? I look at the empty armchair and let out a long, slow breath. My hands relax. No, Bapak. Then get up and follow me. The dragon spits at me, his red saliva splattering the rug and mixing with my blood. Yes, Bapak. I get to my feet and walk towards the door. But as I pass the dragon, he grabs me by the shirt and leans in so close I can see the little red veins in his bloodshot eyes. He reaches down to his belt and draws something up to the side of my face. A knife. Now listen to me very carefully. My brother told me that while your father was being interrogated, he revealed a little family secret. It seems you all suffer from the same weakness. The dragon moves the blade closer to my face. It flashes in the dim light. The tiniest cut, and it could all be over. I want to tell him that it doesn't work like that it's the bleeding on the inside that counts, that I'm bleeding on the inside already. But then the dragon snatches my hand and lifts it up between our faces. He squeezes my finger until blood oozes from the 3 cuts. I suggest you are very careful tonight. You wouldn't want to be the cause of a family tragedy, would you? When I don't reply, the dragon squeezes my finger again. I wince as fresh blood dribbles down to my palm. No, Bapak. Good boy. He lets go of my hand and tucks the knife into his belt. Now, let's not keep your uncle waiting any longer. The dragon shoves me out into the rain and we pick our way through the rubble. Little streams of dirty water flow in the spaces between broken concrete. As the dragon approaches, people fade into the shadows and disappear between ruined buildings. It feels as though we're walking through a ghost town. We reach a car just off the main road, and the dragon tells me to get in the back. Uncle sits on the back seat, clutching a rucksack on his lap. He's wearing a pair of gloves, the plastic ones I've seen doctors wear when Kieran Wakefield needs treatment. Uncle smiles at me, but I have to look away, out of the window. I thought I was doing the right thing by making Grandma's choice for her, but now Uncle will never see his mother again. And it's all my fault. Raindrops streak across the window as one of the dragon's thugs drives us to the factory. Every so often, the dragon glances over his shoulder at us, but no one says anything. The only sound is the whining of the wiper things as they try to clear the screen and the thudding of fat raindrops on the roof. Every few seconds, a scooter splashes by, and the rain trails on the window glow, white and flash red as it passes. We pull in around the back of the factory, parking just out of sight of the gates. The engine is cut. The wipers stop mid-thrash, and the dying headlights plunge us into darkness. Raindrops rattle off the roof and bonnet like bullets. The dragon twists around in his seat and checks his wristwatch. "Give us the signal when you're in the compound," he says. "The van will be here any minute. Take your nephew with you." "Oh, can't Boody wait here?" Uncle says. "I'm used to working on my own. He doesn't need to come." The dragon shakes his head. "Take him with you. We might need him. He can carry your bag if nothing else." Uncle glances at me, and we climb out of the car. The rain falls so hard that my face and arms sting. We jog through a long puddle towards the chained gates, and Uncle quickly glances over each shoulder to check we're not being watched. Then he digs into the rucksack and takes out some tools. "Put these on," he says, snapping off his gloves and handing them to me. "The last thing we need is for all this to be traced back to you." "But what about you?" Uncle smiles. "I think I'm in trouble either way." I pull them on, struggling to get the stretchy plastic over my wet hands. "Point this at the padlock," he says, clicking a torch on and passing it to me. I do as I'm told and watch as his fingers fiddle with the lock. I never thought you could actually pick a lock with a pin. I just thought it was something they did in the movies. But within a few seconds, the padlock pops open and Uncle unravels the chains that hold the gates together. He crouches down and works the bolt out of the ground before pushing the gates open. "Boody, flash the torch twice at the car, then turn it off." I follow Uncle's instructions. And through the noise of the rain, I hear 2 car doors slam shut. "Come on," Uncle says, passing the rucksack to me and hurrying through the gates. I swing the rucksack over my shoulder and follow him towards the container truck. In the darkness, it looks like a living thing, long and dark, like a huge whale. The factory looms up out of the gloom beyond it, and along one wall on the other side of the chain-link fence, I see the rows of bins where I found Uncle. Despite everything, I can't help wondering if my poster of Kieran Wakefield is still in one of them. When we reach the back of the truck, Uncle asks me to shine the torch again, and he starts picking the 2 padlocks that fasten the back doors. As he works the pins in the first lock, I notice a van pulling in through the gates. Its headlights are off, and it rolls into the fenced enclosure without making a sound. It turns and reverses alongside the container truck, parking as close as possible. I recognize the 2 men who jump out of the driver's cab from the Dragon's house, Bayou and Boaz. They hunch against the rain and lift the shutter on the back of their van. They are wearing the same gloves as me. To start with, they haul out a couple of barrels and a few crates, but then people start climbing out of the back. Most of them are men, but every so often a child is lowered into the rain. The second padlock pops open and Uncle lifts them both out of their holdings. "Give me a hand," he says, grasping one of the levers and pulling it to the side. I unhook the other lever and push with all my strength to prise the doors open. And then we step back and stare into the truck. I shine the torches on stacks and stacks of shoeboxes, hundreds and hundreds of them, piled up on wooden pallets and wrapped in plastic. The dragon strides across and smirks at the sight. "Now, let's make it quick," he says. Then his brothers start shouting orders, and the strongest men climb into the container truck and push a pallet to the edge. One time I watched a group of ants carry a huge cockroach back to their nest. It looked a lot like this. As each pallet of shoeboxes is transferred across to the van, another person climbs into the container truck. The barrels and crates are lifted in, and Uncle turns to the dragon beside him. "Are those all the provisions they have?" The dragon shrugs. "Some of them won't make it. I never guaranteed anything." The men keep working. A little girl stands to the side, her black hair hanging in strands, a sodden blanket clutched in her hand. She stares at the dragon and his brothers without any fear, and when she looks at me, I have to turn away. One of the men helps her into the back of the container. She argues that she doesn't want to go, and I'm glad when her brother or cousin or whoever he is clamps a hand over her mouth and drags her backwards deeper into the container. I turn the torch off and drop it into my pocket. It takes about an hour to fill the dragon's van with pallets. Then Bayou and Boaz close the shutter, climb into the cab, and drive away. The men from the van look exhausted, but they clamber into the back of the container and huddle near the remaining pallets at the far end. As the doors close, they look out, a dark shape with many glistening eyes. And then the doors clang shut, and the dragon swings the levers across and fastens the padlocks through the loops. I wonder where the container is going, and how long it will take to get there, and who will open it on the other side. I wonder what they'll find. But I think I already know. "Now you can release Elvis," Uncle says. "I want to see him before your crooked brother comes to arrest me. After what I've done for you, it's only the right thing to do." The dragon stands with his back to us, his gloved hands resting on the container doors. He shakes his head, tutting. "Aaron," he says, turning round slowly, "you should know by now. There's no honor among thieves." In one smooth movement, the dragon pulls something from his belt, but it's not the knife I'm expecting. It's a revolver, just like the ones the police use. "I think you knew it would come to this, Aaron. There isn't any other way it could end." I feel as though my legs might give way at any moment, but Uncle doesn't even flinch at the sight of the gun. "Oh, you can shoot me if you want," he says calmly, "but Boody won't be here to see it." The dragon raises his eyebrows and rainwater trickles down his face. "So you want me to shoot him first?" He points the gun at me, and my heart thumps in my chest. This is what it must be like to take the deciding penalty in a cup final. It feels as though I'm about to vomit my heart into the puddle in front of me. "No," Uncle says. "I want you to let him go. He shouldn't be here. He's nothing to do with this, with that." He points at the container truck behind the dragon. "I can't do that, I'm afraid," the dragon says. "He knows too much." He reaches into his pocket and takes out a mobile phone. The little keypad lights up when he presses a button, and it throws a sickly glow across his face as he lifts it to his ear. He holds the revolver at arm's length, aiming at the space between Uncle and me. "Brother," the dragon says, "it's done." He glances at us. "Yes, bring him here. Do you want me to wait and we'll do all three together? Or should I get these two over with?" "Yes, I've got your gun." "You'll get the credit, don't worry." "Yes, I know. In the back, while trying to evade capture. You said that already." "Okay, goodbye." He puts the phone back in his pocket. "Turn around, Aaron," he says. He knows that we've heard him. When Uncle hesitates, the dragon aims at me. Rain drips from the end of the barrel. "Do you really want to watch your nephew die?" Uncle sighs and turns around. He closes his eyes. The dragon raises the revolver and aims at the back of his head. I turn around too. I can't watch. The rain seems to get heavier, and every drop feels like a bullet against my back. I close my eyes. I take a deep breath. I'm sorry, I say, but I don't know if Uncle can hear me. Then there is a click. My eyes open, and Uncle is no longer beside me. I turn just in time to see the dragon pull the trigger again. But nothing happens. It just clicks. There must be water in the mechanism. And then Uncle tackles him, slamming the dragon against the doors of the container truck. They land heavily, splashing into a puddle. The revolver falls to the ground. The dragon is a much bigger man than Uncle, and as they thrash around, he manages to pin Uncle down. He pushes his face into the puddle and reaches for something tucked into his belt. It glints in the darkness. I rush forward without thinking, shoving the dragon before he can bring the knife down. Uncle gasps for breath, wiping the muddy water from his face. The dragon swings an arm back, and his bejeweled hand catches me on the side of the head. For a moment, there's nothing. Then all I can see is the rain as it falls towards my face out of the blackness. From somewhere nearby, the sounds of grunting, splashing, gargling. I try to sit up, but my head is heavy, and the ground seems to tilt. I roll onto my side and force myself onto all fours. I retch, but nothing comes out. The world stops rocking. My vision settles, but the puddle beneath my face seems to be turning red. I look up. The dragon lies on his back. His domed stomach is still. A knife sticks out of his chest. Beside him, my uncle struggles to get to his feet. He clutches at his ribs and shuffles around the side of the truck. I manage to stand and stagger over to him, but he falls before I can catch him. He twists around and sits with his back against one of the truck's wheels. "You've got to get out of here, Budi," he says, wincing against the pain. He peels his hand away from his side, and I see the cut across his ribs. A cut like that won't stop bleeding, not without a bucket of coconut butter. "But first you've got to get those people out of the truck. There's a pair of bolt cutters in the rucksack. Use them to cut the padlocks." I open the rucksack to find the bolt cutters, but all I can see are multicolored bundles of paper. In the darkness, it's difficult to make out what they are, but when I take one out, I realize exactly what it is. "They're not all for you," Uncle says, trying to smile. I just stare at him. "What?" he says. "You didn't think I'd miss an opportunity to rob that pig, did you? Once a thief, always a thief." He laughs, but doubles over immediately. I look back into the open rucksack. "But there must be millions in here," I say. "Millions and millions." "Well, everyone in the truck paid $1 million, and I think it's only fair they get that back. But the rest is for you, Budi. Do whatever you want with it. I've heard that football academies can be very expensive places." I blink away the tears. I'm holding the bag that could change my life. No more days at the factory. No more blows from the Rotin. No more fake leaky boots. Just days of playing football at the academy in new boots. Real boots. The same boots that Kieran Wakefield wears. Playing my way up through the academy and into La Liga. I realize I've got to tell my uncle something before it is too late. "Grandma died today," I say. "The only reason I gave you over to the dragon was so that she wouldn't have to choose between you and Dad. I'm sorry, Uncle. I thought you'd get to see her. I thought we could all be together. I was just trying to do the right thing." "You did," he says, closing his eyes. "And I did get to see her. I visited her this morning after the earthquake." He smiles. "I think she thought I was Elvis. She just said, 'My son, my son,' and hugged me. She never could tell us apart as children. I got to hold her hand. I got to say goodbye. I told your mother not to tell you that I'd visited. I didn't want her to know about all of this. I just wanted to make things right. I think she understood. I nod, looking down at the rucksack. Thank you, I say. Uncle doesn't respond. He just sits there smiling. I say it again, louder this time. Thank you. But Uncle doesn't respond. I sit on the wet ground, cradling the rucksack. I dig down to the bottom of it for the bolt cutters, but before I can bring them out, a pair of headlights swings through the gates. I scurry around the back of the container and press myself flat against the doors. The dragon's body is so close, and everything about it, the gold chains on his motionless chest, his slack, bejeweled hands, his still open eyes, urges me to run. But I don't move. I take a deep breath and push myself closer to the truck as the sound of an engine draws nearer. Then it cuts out and I hear a door slam. Someone spits. Get out, a voice says, and I know it's the chief inspector. Another door slams. Move it! And then I hear something that makes me wish the dragon had shot me in the back of the head. I hear Dad sobbing, and I know he's just seen his brother for the first time in 10 years. And his brother is dead. Aaron, he says, as though he's pleading with him to wake up, to change his mind. Aaron! Shut up, the chief inspector says. You haven't seen the worst of it yet. Dad cries out as though someone is torturing him. Oh no, he sobs, not my boy, please no. And I'm filled with a rage like I have never felt before. I always thought I hated Euston and Barcelona and Lazzaro Celestino, but now I know what hatred really is. It's a burning, seething venom that poisons your blood and makes you fearless. I spot the dragon's revolver on the floor and swoop down to pick it up. It feels cold and heavy in my hand. The chief inspector's footsteps come closer. It sounds as though Dad is being dragged forward. I wait until they must only be a couple of steps away before spinning round the side of the container and pointing the gun in the chief inspector's face. He almost slips over as he tries to back away. He lets go of Dad's arm and raises his hands in front of his face. Don't shoot, he says. You don't know what you're doing. You can't shoot a police officer. No, I say, shaking my head, but I can shoot you. He smirks as though he is about to dare me, but then he glances over my shoulder and his eyes widen. He must have seen the dragon's body. He takes another step backward. What have you done? I take a step forward, hoping he won't call my bluff. By tomorrow, everyone will know how corrupt you are, and the dragon won't be around to protect you. They'll hunt you down and send you to Nusa Kambangan. I'm giving you a chance to run. Go and tell your brothers that the dragon is dead and don't ever come back here again. I cock the revolver and aim it straight at the chief inspector's heart. This time he doesn't smirk. He just turns and runs, slipping in the mud as he fumbles with the car door. I keep the revolver aimed at him until the car swerves through the gates and races out of sight. I drop the gun. Dad rushes over and hugs me. I look at him properly for the first time. He looks awful. He mustn't have slept since he was taken. He hugs me again and holds me for a long time. The rain starts to ease. Eventually, Dad goes over to Uncle and crouches by his side. He just wanted to make things right, I said. Dad nods. I know. He bows his head, resting a hand on Uncle's shoulder. A mother and a brother in one day. Then he looks up at the sky as though asking Allah for an explanation. But the sky just spits. I take the bolt cutters from the rucksack and break both padlocks on the container. The people inside are surprised to see me, and when they see the dragon lying in a pool of blood, a knife sticking out of his chest, they look horrified. But I don't think any of them can look at the dragon for long without realizing they have one less thing to worry about in Jakarta. They shuffle out one by one, and as they pass, I give them a roll of cash each. I help the little girl with the blanket down, and she gives me a hug. "Thank you," she says, and the last of the rage seeps out of my veins. Some of the men look down at the body and pat me on the shoulder, like I'm the hero, like I stepped up and scored the final penalty. But it wasn't me. When they pass my uncle, they bow their heads and leave in silence. In the end, it's just Dad and the late rucksack, still heavy with bundles of cash. Dad stands up and puts his arm across my shoulders. The rain finally stops. "We've got to leave him here, haven't we?" I ask. "They'll never stop looking for him." "Yes, son," Dad sighs. "There's nothing else we can do." We stand side by side in silence. Then, without saying a word, we turn and make our way home. Someone is waiting at the end of the street. The name on the back of his shirt reads BLMNTE. He sits on a chunk of concrete, knocking a stone from one foot to the other. As we get nearer, he glances over his shoulder and stands up. I nod at Roshi. He nods back. Dad reaches out and puts a hand on Roshi's shoulder, squeezing it slightly. Roshi lowers his head. "I'll leave you two to talk," Dad says. "I need to see my wife." We don't say anything until Dad is almost home. He shuffles like a much older man, gazing at the destruction all around him. Then Roshi looks at me and frowns. "What have you been doing?" I look down at my soaked, dirty, bloody clothes. "Slaying a dragon. It's a long story." He nods, and we fall silent. "I just came to say goodbye," Roshi says, looking at his shoes. "I think I've got some relatives near Surabaya, so I'm going to head that way. They've got a farm, I think. There's nothing left for me here." My heart falls into my stomach, just when I thought the wound was finally closing. Roshi tears it open again. "You can't leave, Roshi. And you can't work on a farm. You're a genius." He smiles. "I don't really have a choice." For a moment, I think he's right. What choice does he have? Then I realize that for once I have a choice, and I could choose to give Roshi a choice. My fingers tighten around the strap on the rucksack. It seems to get heavier as I stand here, as if it's filling with all the things I want, all the things it could give me. I look around at the broken buildings, the empty lives, the ruins of everything. I watch my dad, only just reaching the apartment now, looking broken, looking beaten. The rucksack gets heavier and heavier until I'm sure the Bernabeu, the world, must be inside it. Then I look at Roshi, jobless, homeless, alone. And I let out a long, slow breath. "Here," I say, offering him the rucksack. "Well, what's in it?" he asks. "Just take it. It's for you." He takes the rucksack and opens it. "Where did you get this?" he asks, taking out a roll of notes. "My uncle stole it from the dragon. He told me to do whatever I want with it, and I want to give it to you." Roshi starts to shake his head. "I can't take this," he says. "You could do so much with it. You could afford to train at the academy. It could be the first step to Madrid." "I can't take it." He holds the bag out to me, but I don't reach for it. I put my hands in my pockets. "Go back to school, Roshi. Start again." I walk away before he has time to argue, before he has time to notice me crying. I just leave him standing among the rubble, clutching a bag full of money. Then I reach my apartment. I look back, and there Roshi stands at the end of the road, the rucksack hanging by his side. I pat my chest where the Real Madrid badge should be, and make my hands into the shape of a heart. I hold the heart above my head. Then I step through the door.